Friday afternoon, Golden Black Live. Brian Newbert, Alan Karpick. We are here for another fantastic show. I guarantee. Brian guarantees that personally, I know. But we have also to join the show today to even make it better, Calvin Williams will join us in segment 2, and Rob Hummel will join us in segment 3 from Denver. He did text me about a few minutes ago saying that he is having his pregame, but he expects to be done in time. So we'll
like a meal?
Yeah, a meal, and
Okay.
they're watching film, and they got film of 28 minutes of Rob Hummel's action to watch in this past this past couple days ago, the game in the win over Cleveland. But Brian here to talk about all things football and basketball, and if you're new to the show, you can chat in the chat room, and Allie and/or Gordon, I'm not even sure who's manning the room today, will send us questions, and then also we'll certainly be able to hopefully be able to answer those. And you can obviously at the bottom right-hand corner also send us a question directly. But this is supposed to be an interactive show. You don't want to hear us just talk for an hour, but we'll look forward to having people send us questions. And of course, to our sponsors, we want to thank Basham Reynolds and also Triple X on the hill, but on the level since 1929. And of course, Hilton Garden Inn when tomorrow's a big day, State HGI tonight, and State Farm agent Trent Johnson. Of course, getting back to Basham Reynolds, of course, the Purdue find your way away from home with Basham Reynolds on campus at Purdue. But Brian, we'll start with football, and the Boilermakers, Stacey, has made her way to the home of the Little League Baseball World Series, Williamsport, but she's driving to State College, about an hour drive. But the Boilermakers have every week is a tough test for Purdue, the way things have been going. But certainly Penn State will present another place where the Boilermakers will be a decided underdog.
Yeah, Penn State is not particularly good right now. They're down to 61 scholarships, as everyone knows. They're starting to wear down. They have some serious flaws in their roster just because they're so thin all over the place. They're playing a lot of walk-ons. They're playing a lot of guys, a lot of snaps, and as the season goes on, that obviously takes its toll. But, you know, we said the same thing about Iowa last year.
Last week, yeah.
Last week, where the schedule led up, so to speak, where you're out of this suffocating stretch of Big Ten powers that you're playing every single week, and all of a sudden you have a beatable opponent. And what happened? 38-14 happened. And obviously Penn State is not great. They look vulnerable on paper, but Purdue does not in any way, shape, or form look like a football team who can take advantage of that right now.
Purdue, Penn State tomorrow noon on the Big Ten Network. And I do think that the Boilermakers have a chance to, I mean, on paper, to, like you keep saying, and we keep saying, on paper they ought to have, there's some opportunity to compete in this game. But again, it gets as simple as if you can't score, it certainly presents its share of problems, and that's what we've seen in this team all season long.
Yeah, and that's not going to change overnight, obviously, with all the inexperience Purdue's playing, with all the limitations they have up front from an offensive perspective. Purdue's just not going to flip a switch and be not just a productive offense, but a functional offense overnight. What absolutely blows your mind is just how impotent this running game has been. You know, there's one team in all of college football that generates less offense on the ground than Purdue does, and that's Washington State, which doesn't even try to run. Yeah. It's not what they do at all. They're a pass first, second, third, and fourth team. And, you know, the whole crux of what Darrell Hazel wanted to do offensively and John Shoup was they wanted to run the ball first. Hasn't worked at all. Now, Penn State's very vulnerable, it seems like, to throwing the ball up the field. They've been beaten over the top a couple times. Purdue has shown nothing to suggest they might be able to take advantage of that, but it will be interesting to see if they take some cracks at least.
Yeah, Darrell Hazel talked about that this week on a couple of occasions, about that hope of, and also identifying the quote-unquote 4 receivers that they're going to focus on to use, and that being D'Angelo Yancey and Danny Anthrop, and of course B.J. Knopf and Cameron Posey, all household names. But this is a team that it'll be interesting to see how they can do it and whether they can crack the ball deep, so to speak. They had a couple chances against Michigan State on seam routes, but it doesn't seem like they've had many chances since. Now, admittedly, against Ohio State and against who did they play last week? Iowa. That wasn't quite the. Just didn't seem to present itself. And
already blocked that game out, huh?
Yeah, and protection was an issue. At least in the Ohio State game, it was better last week. All right, we are getting questions in. We have a question about, can you predict Purdue's football final record? The answer is yes, we can predict it. The question is, will we be correct? I said a couple weeks ago, I think maybe on the post-game radio show, that I really thought Purdue would get another win. Stacy said this week in the issue on expressing in the expressing portion that she thought Purdue would get another win. Yet I don't come up with any reasonable way of saying that that's going to happen. Purdue will be an underdog in all three. They're already an underdog one of the last 3 games. They'll be an underdog the next 2. But can you see one happening?
I think Purdue's staring right down the barrel of 1-11, unfortunately for Purdue. Obviously, Illinois coming in next week. You have to think Purdue should have a chance at that one. Illinois hasn't won a Big Ten game in almost 2 years now, but Illinois is going to want that one real bad too. And the thing about Illinois is they can score. Nathan Shieldhouse has been problematic at times for Purdue in his career. They are putting up points, that they are generating yards. They just can't stop anybody. But the thing is, Purdue can't stop anybody either. So is Purdue's offense functional enough to take advantage of a bad defense to the point where it can counter an offense that's taking advantage of a bad defense? We certainly don't have any reason to think so, and I think I got that right.
Yeah, I don't know if you did or not, but I think you did. We'll let you say that. But no, again, anything can happen, and there's some things that can change. You think about Illinois putting up 612 yards against Indiana. Everybody seems to be putting up those numbers against the Hoosiers. But again, it gets back to my concerns are going to be, can Purdue score enough? It seems like that any game over 20 is going to be a challenge for Purdue, but you keep thinking, well, something could break, something could change, but line play is such an important part of this, and it just seems like this team has not been able to develop any level of continuity in both the offensive and defensive lines to be able to scare anybody.
Right. The good news, the next 2 defenses, or the last 2 defenses Purdue will play after tomorrow at Penn State, are absolutely horrific. Indiana and Illinois can't stop anybody. But to be able to take advantage of bad defenses like that, you have to be able to run the ball, and Purdue cannot run the ball. They have gone the entire season to this point without a rushing touchdown by a running back, and I believe without a 20-yard run or more by a running back, which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
If there was an Elias Sports Bureau or some sort of outfit out there who looked stuff up, you have to figure that hasn't happened very often in the history of major college football. Yeah. If Purdue goes the whole season without that being the case.
The longest run from scrimmage, 18 yards. The longest run
by a running back.
Yeah, and obviously in the I don't know if ironic is the correct term, but Rob Henry's 22-yard run, I believe it was, against Wisconsin, was on a broken play.
B.J. Knopf too has a 20-some-yard run.
Yeah, on a
wide receiver,
jet sweep,
something like that. Yeah.
But this is and that's the thing. It's not that anybody feels sorry for us, because they shouldn't, but it has been difficult to. It's hard to, you start to look at records the other way. It used to be a time when we were always looking at offensive records, how many yards was Kyle Orton throwing for and Curtis Painter on down the line. It's a challenge to not be able to look up negative stuff all the time, because there are plenty of them, unfortunately, to go along with that. And Purdue, that's probably where you'll see the worm starting to turn, when some things happen on a positive light statistically almost for this team, because none of it has it to date. All right, so prediction tomorrow. Have you put the predictions up on the site yet?
Have not.
Okay.
Running a little behind today.
So we'll leave that absolutely to you guys to
It'll be a cliffhanger, though, believe me.
Yeah, from that standpoint. I know that every week I have picked Purdue closer than they've finished, and yet so have the odds makers. Purdue is the lines. The Vegas folks have generally picked closer games than they've been. But hopefully, if you're a Purdue fan tomorrow, that will not be the case. Well, Brian, you came back. You came back first. That's a good thing to work. That's always good. But secondly, you had basketball this afternoon and talked to Matt Painter. Matt Painter also on our radio show today. National Signing Day, or certainly the early signing period for basketball this week. What did the coach have to say today to enlighten us as the Boilermakers look forward to Rider on Sunday evening?
Rider, obviously nobody's really delved headfirst into them yet. Purdue is watching video on Rider right now. So when you go out and talk to the players before they know anything about the opponent, it's pretty much a wash. But Rider, at least on paper, has more size than these first 2 teams Purdue's played. So Purdue might see a little bit, at least from a measurement standpoint, we'll see a little bit more of a traditional matchup, like the ones it'll play when it plays more BCS conference teams, as opposed to playing all this small ball stuff that you've seen with Northern Kentucky, Central Connecticut, and all these guard-heavy mid-majors or low majors that just don't have the sort of size Purdue does. So that's interesting right there, in the sense that you might see Purdue roll out some lineups now that you might see later in the season, where he might be able to play his bigs more than he has to this point. He might be able to put Jay Simpson next to A.J. Hammonds for a little while just to see how that sticks. But at the same time, you don't want to take Eric Peck off the court in competitive games because he's been so unbelievably valuable to Purdue to this point.
Yeah, you look at Ryder, and like I said, you talk about the size. And I think they also have a couple kids that are ineligible or transferring. It has a fair amount of size. But how do you look at I spent the second half of the Central Connecticut State game just because it was fun to watch in terms of all the offense, but you look at the situation that how do you pare this rotation down in time? I know it's very, very early to say that, but do you see Matt Painter really playing more players consistently than he historically has because he has more guys? I'm talking the top 10 or 11 that can fit in the rotation.
I think it's pretty hard to play 10 guys consistently. I do think that there will be games where certain guys will play more than they do in other games. I think you've already seen through 3 games, the freshmen are going to be freshmen. They're going to have their limitations. Their roles are going to be predicated sometimes by their decision making, their defense, and the matchup. Also, I don't think Purdue can play 3 centers. Obviously, I think they're going to get locked in at some point to pretty much A.J. Hammonds and Jay Simpson. I think obviously Travis Carroll can bring you some things on game day, but I think he's that third guy right now, and he's obviously going to be subject to foul trouble should anything happen to Hammonds or Jay Simpson. So I don't think you can play 10, 11 guys realistically. I think you can play them over a period of time. I don't think you can play that many guys consistently on a per-game basis.
And there may be a case where certain guys will come in and out of the rotation. I mean, is that what you maybe foresee depending on the opponents that you play?
Yeah, that's what I was so ineloquently trying to say earlier, is that when you play a certain team, you might want a certain guy more than you want that certain guy against a different team. I think Sterling Carter, for example, Purdue's pretty well set at point guard right now with Ronnie Johnson and Bryson Scott. I think Carter can bring you a lot of things. I think he's very physical on defense. I think there's something to be said for that. He obviously brings you some scoring punch. I think if he's making shots, he's going to play. I think if he's not making shots, I think he might be one of those matchup predicated sort of guys.
We're getting a couple questions on recruiting, and you look at this situation obviously with Wednesday being signing day and the 3 commitments that Purdue got. A question about Isaac Haas in the spring of any and the coaching staff getting commitment from him. Matt Painter was very clear that he wasn't done recruiting.
Yeah.
But what's going on out there
with Isaac Haas, or just with anyone in general?
Haas and everybody in general.
Yeah, Purdue obviously signed its class Wednesday, but it signed part of its class on Wednesday. They're going to sign somebody else in the spring. That's pretty much evident. Painter said on Wednesday, not we're going to try to sign somebody, we are going to sign somebody. So Purdue is going to use all those scholarships it has to play with. It's not going to throw them around like candy by any means, because they need scholarships for their 2015 class too, but they obviously want a center. I think it's fairly evident as to why, because it's very possible if A.J. Hammonds has the sort of year he's capable of having, and his first game was a very good one, not that he's going to be judged on how he plays against Central Connecticut. I think if he is in a position to leave, I think that's something he's going to want to strongly consider. Maybe not want to strongly consider, but will strongly consider. Mm-hmm. It's a very loaded draft, mind you, so that there's going to be factors working against him too. But if he has the sort of year he can have, he's a pro, there's no question. Purdue is going to try to cover itself in case of that hypothetical materializing. I think it wants a big man, it wants a physical presence who can step in and help offset that loss. Not replace Hammonds, but just help not make the drop-off so drastic. I think obviously they signed Jaquil Taylor in the early period. He's not that guy. He's more of a long-range sort of, he has to get healthy, he has to get bigger and stronger, he's athletic, so you're looking at kind of a long-term investment there. But he's not that guy who steps right in for Hammonds should Hammonds leave. I think they're going to, if Isaac Haas is genuinely open, which he may or may not be because Wake Forest is still going to recruit him, and UAB is sitting right there in his backyard hoping to scoop him up, and oftentimes when guys flake out at the last second, like
Yeah, and
this,
tell everybody what happened
it's
to
because
Wake
they want to
Forest.
stay closer
Yeah.
to home. Isaac Haas is the 7'2" center from Alabama, and Purdue recruited him, offered him, had him in for an official visit. He goes to Wake Forest either the next week or 2 weeks later and just abruptly commits to Wake Forest, which seemed very surprising because he seemed very process-oriented with how he was going to approach things, but he just up and got caught up in it and committed to Wake Forest. Wednesday was the start of the early period. He was expected to sign. He did not sign. So now he's relatively open again. I'm not sure exactly what he's thinking, what he's going to do. I know Wake Forest wants him. Wake Forest didn't drop him. I know Jeff Bedzelic at Wake Forest could be in a lot of trouble if they don't have a good season. Maybe that's part of his thinking. Maybe he wants to stay closer to home and just wants to go to UAB. Early on, a lot of people thought he was going to UAB, Alabama, Birmingham. But that did not happen. As I said, he made that abrupt commitment to Wake. If he's genuinely open to the point where people are going to have a chance to genuinely recruit him, if his mind's not made up, Purdue will be all in on recruiting him again because they have to have a center in some shape or form, and they really liked him early. So if he's genuinely available, Purdue will be knocking on his door.
And he was here, what was it, last week of August for the elite camp?
It was the August 23rd weekend for his
Yeah.
official visit, yeah.
Got a lot of nice pictures of him. It's too bad it didn't work out.
He's large.
Yeah, he's a big guy. That part I know. Absolutely a huge physical presence. You know, obviously Vince Edwards now finally in camp. I thought that Matt Painter was interesting on talking about Taylor, also comparing him. And I like it when coaches do that because it makes it easy for people like me that can remember and you can remember the Gary McQuays of the world. But this talking about what he may look like, Jaquil Taylor on that front. But certainly all this work into Edwards means something to be able to get a guy of that caliber and keep him, and through all the battle that at least the battle on covering him over the last couple of years and finally comes to pass.
Well, the most important thing isn't who else recruited a kid. It's how much you like him, how much you feel like he fits. And Vince Edwards is a tailor-made fit for what Purdue wants to do. I thought it was interesting and kind of telling about what Purdue's problems were last year with some of the power forward types they ran out there last year trying to play big lineups. That Painter said that skill at that 4 position is a desperate need, meaning that's how they're playing from here on out, come hell or high water. Vince Edwards is ideal for that sort of role, and that's what Purdue saw in him many years ago when they started recruiting him. He does what our guest later, Robbie Hummel, did when he played that position for Purdue. I'm not saying he'll do it as well as Robbie Hummel did. I'm not comparing him to Robbie Hummel. I'm saying from a skill set perspective, he's that style of player. He can really dribble. He can really handle the ball. He can really pass. He can make decisions. But at the same time, for being a 6'7" forward, he can be pretty physical. He can score with his back to the basket. He can really rebound. He can be productive in so many phases of the game that's what Purdue's looking for in that position, and that's where kind of the fit lies.
And Dakota Mathias, obviously Matt Painter was pretty heaped on the praise, certainly on what Mathias can do. And again, seems to be a very good fit. You've seen him play a lot this past summer especially, but again, your opinion hasn't changed on him because there'd be no reason to, but we'll talk about what, in context of what Matt Painter said, what you see in him.
Well, I'll speak to what I have seen seeing Dakota Mathias play quite a bit. He's a really good shooter. I don't know if he's a Kendall Stevens shooter, but you can say that about 99.9% of the college basketball playing community right now. I think Kendall Stevens is going to be an absolute elite shooter for Purdue. Dakota Mathias is a really good shooter, though, and he can shoot all kinds of different jump shots. He's not just a spot-up three-point shooter like a lot of those guys are. He can shoot off the dribble. He can create his own shots sometimes. He can go mid-range. He can shoot out of post-ups. He can do all sorts of different stuff. But at the same time, he's very versatile, just in his offensive game in general, not just his shooting. He's a guy who can really handle the ball. He can really pass. He's not going to play point guard by any means in college, but he's a guy who will be good in a motion offense because he can make decisions. He can handle the ball, and he's really smart. And he's going to be really good. You can play him off ball screens the way you would a point guard because he can make decisions that way, and you can put the ball in his hands and trust him to make the right decisions. And he's a really tough kid. I would compare him a little bit to Ryan Smith. I know that that comparison's probably tired. The white guy from Ohio who shoots really well. I don't know if they're the same type of player, though, but they have the same type of demeanor. They're very tough. They're very smart. They both love basketball. They both understand the game. And I think Dakota Mathias is going to be a very, very good player at Purdue. I don't know if he'll ever be a star, but he'll be a perfect complementary piece to all the talent Purdue has assembled right now.
Yeah, and there is a fair amount of talent. If you look at the two classes in front of him, you know, these guys, at least Mathias isn't going to have to necessarily walk in right in and play, and Edwards too. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, obviously where he fits in down the road. You'll have obviously Peck moving on. I know they may not be in the different positions, but it's just going to be interesting to see how all that shakes out. And that, I think, will be one of the interesting storylines this season about, again, where is Bryson Scott come January or February? Is he your a guy that's absolutely in the rotation, playing 16 to 18 minutes a game? How do you? And again, it's early to say a lot of things like that, but how do you see that now?
Bryson Scott.
Yeah.
You said. I think he's obviously your number 2 point guard right now. I think it's up to him. I think if he can make good decisions with the ball, not turn the ball over, and play defense without fouling, I think he's a guy Purdue's going to want on the floor quite a bit. But people have to understand the transition from high school to college is significant, and this is a guy who has dominated at every level of basketball he's played in, doing things his way. And in college basketball, you have to conform, especially when you're the point guard. You have to make everybody around you better. You have to make good decisions. You have to pick your battles wisely when you're bringing the ball up the floor and there's 3 guys back and you're the only one. I think he's very aggressive defensively. I think there's going to come some points in time where he's just going to want to take the ball from people. That's just how he's wired, and that's what makes him good. But as his high school coach said once, what makes him good sometimes can be his greatest flaw. And you just kind of have to take the good with the bad for a while and just kind of see how he settles in. But the most important thing for him is how he handles adversity, because he expects so much from himself, almost to the point of it being unreasonable. He gets down on himself sometimes when things don't go his way, at least he did before. But now he just has to understand that when times get tough, it's not the end of the world. And there is a place for him at Purdue. There's a place for him in college basketball, and he's got a very good chance to be a very good player. He's just going to have to be patient about it.
Yeah, we got a couple quick questions before we take a break, but one question about Vince Edwards. Why did his stock plummet over the summer, in terms of his ratings? I don't know if plummet is necessarily a fair word to where it happened. What happened over the summer? I don't
know if I'd say his stock plummeted per se. I think a lot of guys had good summers.
Yeah.
It's not always about a guy dropping as much as it's other guys moving up. I think Vince Edwards, though, I know he went down in the rankings a little bit. He may not have had the best summer. He transitioned to a new AAU team. He went from a team his junior year that didn't have a 17 and under team to move up to. He obviously was the star on that team, had a chance to showcase everything he can do because he always had the ball in his hands. He was doing everything. He transitioned to All-Ohio Red, which is usually one of the most talent-laden AAU programs in the country, so it was more a matter of conforming, kind of playing with other really good players. There was a couple of Ohio State commitments on that team, so he was more of I don't want to say a role player because he was still one of their best players, but he didn't stand out quite as much. And from a physical standpoint, he's one of those guys that was so well refined so early in his career from a skills perspective that he was, as a senior, not all that unlike what he was as a sophomore. So he didn't quite stick out as much as an upperclassman than he did as an underclassman. And in situations like that, you saw it with Bryson Scott too, where guys are so advanced so early, they kind of get taken for granted sometimes what they can do. And then a lot of other people who might have more upside or improvement potential capitalize on it and then move up.
All right, we're going to take a couple of minutes. It was an excellent explanation, and we will take a couple-minute break, and we'll be back for segment 2 of Gold and Black Live.
Purdue students, find your home away from home with Basham Rentals, trusted for 3 generations to provide quality student housing. We are now leasing for next year, so call us to learn about our apartments and townhomes, all located at the edge of campus. We're eager to share information on our many units, supported by 24-hour maintenance. Basham Rentals. Call us at 743-8367 or look for us online at mybashamrentals.com or boilerapartments.com. Going to the Purdue game? Stay at Hilton Garden Inn, West Lafayette at the Wabash Landing. Your family will love the well-appointed guest rooms, the pool, whirlpool, fitness center, the breakfast buffet, and the amazing Hilton Garden Inn staff. Located just 4 blocks from Purdue University, Hilton Garden Inn has long been the choice for Purdue fans. Call today for a reservation and make Hilton Garden Inn your #1 choice.
Good driver? We've got a discount for that and a lot more. See State Farm agent Trent Johnson to make sure you get all the discounts you deserve on your car insurance. Saving you money? It's just part of being there. Call or visit Trent today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
More than the players on the field. More than coaches on the sidelines. More than the fans in the stands. More than just scores at the end of the night. It's the action, the stories, the heroes. It's the Friday Night Frenzy. It's the Friday Night Frenzy, and it's only on News 18. High school football from where you live.
We're sitting up straight here. We've got, I'm not going to disparage Brian Newbert, but we've got Calvin Williams here. They're both equally good looking, so that's a good thing. But Calvin, welcome to the show. This is not your first rodeo in so many ways, but not your first trip to Gold and Black Live, but a lot to talk about. Obviously, your role at Purdue is as an associate athletic director. You've oversee volleyball, cross country, track, wrestling,
and softball.
Volleyball has been kind of and Dave Shondell does a great job, but kind of been a week-to-week experience. It's just a rough and tumble Big Ten that you have to deal with.
It's tough. I mean, we'll get Northwestern and Illinois this weekend, and, there's 2 victories that we really need. Big Ten is the toughest conference in the nation, and, day in and day out, when you go in, you got to bring your A game. We didn't have Carly Kramer last week, and that really hurt us. She makes a big difference. She's great. She has great ball control. And, but when a player like that is out, other players have to step up.
Yeah, and you've had an experience here coming back and being involved with those sports. How's that? And obviously, you a very accomplished football player and standout at Purdue from 1986 to 89, played in the league for several years for the Eagles and for the Ravens, but you're obviously a lover of sport, but having an opportunity to be involved with these sports is a different experience, but it's all about competition, I assume.
Competition, and when you're a sports junkie like I am, you love it. I mean, this is a dream job. I love interacting with the kids and every day and the challenges that it brings. Every day is a new day. You have your schedule set out, and things happen, and you have to adjust, and that's the thrill of it. Every day is different and new.
And cross country certainly made some steps in the right direction, and Coach Green also, the whole track program seems to be moving in the right direction. But talk a little bit about that, and you're obviously involved with that hire and some of the changes that came about with that.
Very excited. The chemistry is just phenomenal from the time I got here. We brought Lonnie Green, and he has a great track record coming from Arkansas, a great program. And, when we interviewed him, we thought he was the one. We knew he was the one. It was just a matter of convincing him to be on board, and he's on board. He's got a great first recruiting class, freshman class. They're going to be dynamic. And the previous staff did an excellent job in recruiting. You know, we've upped the game a little bit, and you know, we've done some good things. We've made strides in cross country, finished 6th on the men's side, 8th on the women. You know, it was a big move for us.
Yeah.
And we're just going to keep getting better and keep working hard and trying to improve the program.
Is it still the and maybe this is an oversimplification, though, a track at Purdue has been, you know, they've had a lot of success with the throwers, and that's where, and you have to pick and choose kind of where you invest. Is that still going to be the case, or is Coach Green going to spread that out a little bit more, or what's the philosophy?
We're about winning championships.
Yeah.
You know, we're still going to, you know, have our power as far as the throws. You know, but speed and power is going to be Coach Green's philosophy. And, you know, we're going to attack that. You'll see evidence of that this year. We'll be more competitive in the sprints and the middle distance, you know. So that's the philosophy, you know, speed and power, combine them, and we're going to win the Big Ten championships.
And you got change also in softball, and had a new hire in that situation, have a new facility online. There isn't much time just to sit back and put your feet on the desk. But talk a little bit about softball and what's going on there with the transition, but also the facility is going to ramp up here in the near term as well.
The facility, we put the bid out, and it'll come back roughly about December the 13th. You know, hopefully everything falls in line, and if everything goes according to schedule, we'll open up the stadium in May of 2015. You know, so we're very excited about that. Also excited about Coach Kim Schutte, who comes from Eastern Illinois with a great track record. She's won championships in the OVC conference, and so we're excited about her and the things she's doing, and we'll continue to move forward as she builds the team.
You know, I look back at your resume and how you got to Purdue. You know, you'd worked obviously in the NFL, but after your NFL time, kind of away from athletics, at least from in your day job. But what prompted you to get back? Talk about your experience from football till you got back into athletics, and how that's impacted you and your decision to get back into athletics the way you have.
Well, I was always involved in athletics, and you know, when I got out of coaching, my last stint in coaching, my son was at the age where he was getting involved in the sports. So I took that time and I coached him and coached the teams he was a part of. And then an opportunity came about 5 years ago to be involved with a charter school back in Baltimore, Maryland, as an athletic director and building a program that didn't exist, and I thought it was a great challenge. And so I took it on, and you know, we built the program, and the program is thriving. And then you know, I started to explore some other opportunities. I actually thought I'd get an opportunity to be a scout in the NFL. That's what I was, you know, trying to get in administration. Had did a stint with the Houston Texans and Rick Smith, who's a former Boilermaker, and this opportunity came along, and you know, I jumped at the chance, and everything worked out, and I'm back home.
What did you learn from Rick Smith? I mean, obviously a very accomplished, not only in the field, but really, you know, you think about Purdue having two guys that played close to the same time with Ryan Grigson and Rick Smith at that level in the NFL. That's pretty amazing. But what did you learn from that experience?
Just, you know, it's almost like playing chess. You know, Rick has always got a plan. He's always thinking 3 and 4 steps ahead, and that's the biggest adjustment I had to make, to always think, you know, 3 and 4 steps ahead. And that's probably the biggest thing I learned from him. Man, he's an awesome guy, awesome leader.
When you say 3 to 4 steps ahead, sometimes, I mean, you talk about coming in jobs in athletics, you never know exactly what's going to happen from day to day. So it's that fine line for planning, but you've got to be flexible as well.
You have to. I mean, things change at a drop of a hat, and you know, injuries occur, and you have to anticipate things. You know, you don't want things to happen negatively to your program or your team, but things happen. You got to be ready for it.
All right, we have a couple questions for you. These are good ones about
All right.
your day with the Eagles. He said, I think this must be in some kind of Tecmo Super Bowl. I don't even know if that's a game. Better receiver, you, Fred Barnett, or Keith Jackson?
I mean, I'm a Boilermaker. I can never put anybody better than me. I'm the best. You know, in my mind, you know, nobody's better than me, and that's the attitude I take on the field.
Yeah, and you look at the situation, you really have had an interesting, your days at Purdue. Somewhat similar on the football side to what's going on. I mean, you went through a coaching transition after your redshirt freshman year.
Yeah.
Then you went 87, 88, 89. Team didn't have the success that you would have liked to have had. You had, and talk about that. Have you been able to relate that to any of the guys? I mean, and I know that your job, you had a full-time job away from football, but there are certainly guys that know where you come from that you may get a chance to speak with.
I talked to the team when we made the change, you know, and you know, when they were going through that transition and told them some of the things, you know, that they should anticipate. And that's always tough, you know, because, you know, a new person is coming in. They didn't recruit you, you know, so when spring ball comes around, you've got to prove yourself. Some guys, you know, unfortunately, with the coaching staff, some guys feel like they're lost. So some guys will get new energy. Yeah. And that's just some of the things that happen, comes with the territory, you know. But I just told them to be positive. You got to be all in. You got to, you know, believe in the coaching staff and believe what's going on, and just, you know, the coach, you know, puts a plan together, and you got to follow it and believe in it.
You know, you had a chance, as accomplished a receiver as you were, Purdue struggled on offense for periods of time throughout your tenure, and if not a lot of that time. How did you keep, and what do you tell kids, that, especially receivers, that have the ability to play at the next level but have to pick and choose their spots to really have those big reception games, put up the numbers that it takes to get NFL scouts interested?
You know, my thing is, if you're good, they'll find you, and just play. And that's what I always try to do. You know, I wasn't so worried about how many catches I would get a game, how many touchdowns I would get. I just wanted to play. Yeah. And I wanted the opportunity to play at the next level. And, you know, I just think if you're good enough and you're put in positions, you get an opportunity, and you do what you do, you know, you'll shine. And that's all I did. And that's all I tell, you know, young people to do. Just do what you do your job, trust the guys around you, and just move forward.
He did put up some big numbers in certain games, like going back to the 1989 Michigan game, and Eric Hunter comes in, and you still could be catching balls up in the big house. And Michigan, I think if that game might have gone on another quarter, you might have caught him. But that was an amazing football game to come back against a team like Michigan and put up those numbers in a losing effort, sure, but had to be a lot of fun to be able to tell your kids and someday grandkids that you had a big day at the big house.
Oh yeah, I mean it's just about playing football. You know, big stadiums. You know, traditions. You know, I was never intimidated by those type of things. Yeah. I just wanted to play, and I wanted to play against the best. And you know, we had a phenomenal day that day. We had, you know, good talent. You know, we proved, you know, given the right situation and the right game plan, we could be competitive, and we were.
Yeah, this football team, Purdue's football team, has 3 games left, and not many are expecting them to maybe even win one of them. But again, calling on your experience, 86 is your redshirt freshman year. Nobody expected you to beat Indiana, and you had a transition. Did the same thing to him in your last college game in '89, where nobody expected him to win. So what's the message if you would be in front of this team one more time and they have 3 games left? What do you tell them at this point in time?
Just what I said before. Everybody's got to be all in. You got to be all in, and you got to believe. You have to believe that you have the talent to win. And trust the guys beside you that you can get it done, and just go out and do it, and just have fun. That's what I tell the guys. Just have fun playing the game. It's the greatest game in the world, and you have the opportunity to play it and shine in front of large crowds.
Last question for you today, and Calvin, you have, you know, football has changed since you've played even in the league.
Yes.
A lot. Your skills, do you find it more appealing now as a player if you were able to play now in the offenses the way they are, and the crazy passing, the ability to pass the football the way that they do now, or is it just fine the way it was when you played?
Man, I get so jealous, you know, because I was one of those guys that I was good in the slot, and you know that's where the Eagles primarily used me, in the slot, you know. And I would, you know, find my way in holes in defenses, you know. So today, you know, when I see the slot receivers and you know, catching 100 balls, man, oh man, I get so jealous, you know. But it's the time, you know. You can always go back and say woulda, coulda, shoulda, you know. But it's their time and they're shining. I'm happy for them.
Is it a safe? I mean, obviously all the questions about concussions and all the things that guys have to deal with now, but is it a safer environment for receivers with some of the rules than it was when you played?
Man, how much time we had. You know, it's give and take. You know, as a guy who played before, I think referees are making calls. They never played the game, and some of the calls, I feel sorry for the defensive guys, because I feel like they're bad calls. You know, so if I can't hit you up top, now I'm going to hit you low. You know, so a receiver, I'm concerned now, because now I'm worried about my knees. Yeah. You know, so it is what it is, and you know, I don't like the way the game is moving, but you know, you've got to protect people, and you know, it's just inevitable because guys are bigger, stronger, and they're faster. So collisions are going to occur and they're going to be more violent.
All right, we'll have you back on because that is a topic of another discussion in terms of where the game of football is going, and there's a lot of different opinions on that. Well, Calvin, you've got a busy weekend as well, and not only from a family standpoint, your son playing in a big-time regional football game tonight, but obviously also Purdue volleyball, very, very busy as well. So, Calvin, thanks so much for your time. We enjoyed having you on, and we'll do it again.
Thank you, Alan.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate it.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, bring Brian Newbert back in, have Rob Hummel. I think Brian's been texting him, so hopefully he's going to call in as well. We'll look forward to doing that and seeing you in a couple of minutes on Gold and Black Live.
Purdue students, find your home away from home with Basham Rentals. Trusted for 3 generations to provide quality student housing. We are now leasing for next year, so call us to learn about our apartments and townhomes, all located at the edge of campus. We're eager to share information on our many units, supported by 24-hour maintenance. Basham Rentals. Call us at 743-8367 or look for us online at mybashamrentals.com or boilerapartments.com. Going to the Purdue game? Stay at Hilton Garden Inn, West Lafayette at the Wabash Landing. Your family will love the well-appointed guest rooms, the pool, whirlpool, fitness center, the breakfast buffet, and the amazing Hilton Garden Inn staff. Located just 4 blocks from Purdue University, Hilton Garden Inn has long been the choice for Purdue fans. Call today for a reservation and make Hilton Garden Inn your #1 choice.
More than the players on the field. More than coaches on the sidelines. More than the fans in the stands. More than just scores at the end of the night. It's the action, the stories, the heroes. It's the Friday Night Frenzy. It's the Friday Night Frenzy, and it's only on News 18. High school football from where you live.
Segment 3, Gold and Black Live. Brian Newbert returns, and I want to thank Calvin Williams for joining us, and also our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, Basham Rentals, State Farm agent Trent Johnson, and Triple X for all that they do for us. And speaking of guys that we're always happy to talk to, Rob Hummel, are you on the line?
I'm here. He's here.
You can hear him, okay? And
Yeah.
I'm not here. Well, maybe you better talk to Brian. But Rob, welcome to the show, and I'm glad that you're on, and glad that you're basking in beautiful Denver, Colorado, and getting ready for a game tonight. But big happenings here in the last 48 hours for you. Obviously, the opportunity to get your first NBA start.
Sure, yeah. No, I'm in beautiful Denver, Colorado, in the hotel. So that's been good. We played tonight. yeah, it was pretty cool to start my first game and then to get to play and contribute. And it's been a good couple of days.
Hi, Robert. Hey, you played college basketball 3 years ago, international basketball last year, NBA basketball this year. Your head kind of spinning?
Not too bad. I mean, being at Purdue was obviously very normal for me because it was something I was used to, and I'd been doing that for so long. Then you go overseas, and that would had my head spinning a little bit just because it was so much different than what I was accustomed to. You realize how spoiled you are playing in the United States and at a Big Ten school like Purdue, and then to come here is you're dealing with the best of the best, and that's in everything. Whether that's the hotels you stay in, the players you're playing against, everything. It's first class all the way.
You look at your opportunity, obviously, and Purdue fans were the Twitter sphere, which you are one of the great ones in that, but it completely exploded 2 nights ago during the Central Connecticut State game. But the fact that you were in the starting lineup, you learned 40 minutes before that was going to happen. You were quoted as saying that your stomach got going a little bit, but how long did it take you to settle in?
Once I got on the court to warm up, I felt pretty good. It's still a basketball game, even if it is, your first NBA start. But sure, my heart started beating pretty fast, and the butterflies definitely got going a little more than they would have been had I been starting on the bench. But once the game starts, you really forget all about it and you just play. So I'm fortunate in the fact that I play on a team that is very unselfish, makes it very easy to play. Our system is very fun to play in, so it's a great opportunity for me.
Yeah, Rick Adelman certainly is known for having that system, and you have had a situation too that what's been the biggest difference? I mean, obviously you're playing with the greatest players in the world in the NBA, but from a mindset standpoint, what have you had to change the most, you think, in the last year now that you've made the roster and getting an opportunity at the highest level?
Sure. It's probably the hardest thing for me has been the not playing. And it's not one of those things where you get mad or you're mad at Coach Adams for not putting you in. It's just it's a completely different beast up here. You're playing with, like you said, the best players in the world. So I've never experienced a did not play until the game against Orlando. I think that was my first one of my life. So to have that happen, it's a completely different mindset. And I've talked to some of our assistant coaches, and they've harped on it. You have to stay ready. You never know when the opportunity is going to come, and then you see a few nights later, Kevin Martin gets sick, and I start. So it's a crazy business, but just that aspect of not playing every night is certainly weird.
Rob, what was it like having to make a team?
I was pretty fortunate in the fact that I've had some pretty good experience in that. Just making your high school team, and then you get to Purdue. Obviously, you earn a scholarship, so you don't really make the team. But then USA basketball tryouts were kind of a good, I guess, stepping stone for that. So I've had a few experiences where I've tried out for teams and made them. But it's an interesting experience. It stinks not knowing if you have a job, and to get cut, whether that's financially or for confidence-wise, or just for the fact that you want to play in the NBA. It's a tough scenario to go into.
And we do get questions from some of our folks in the chat room. One person asked about how does it feel to start out in the NBA in Minneapolis, Minnesota? Obviously, the same site of one of your most difficult moments in your probably in your life, and certainly in your college basketball life. Any irony there, or how do you look at that? Are you one of those ones that believe in karma?
I don't know if I believe in karma, but it is certainly an interesting coincidence. No doubt about that. I've made it over to Williams Arena. I went and watched Purdue play Minnesota volleyball, and I still hate going there. It's not a place I enjoy being at. I'll go over there and watch Purdue play in basketball if I'm around. Obviously, I don't know if we'll be home or not. But it's pretty crazy. I mean, you think about what happened there all those years ago, and it's crazy how long ago that was now. But that's something that I'll never get over. I still have a hard time even watching college basketball, to be honest. I tried to watch those games with the Michigan State, Kentucky, Duke, and Kansas, and I'm still kind of bitter about it. Something I need to get over, but it's hard for me to watch.
Yeah, I think the Boilermakers are up there around the 5th of January. You can take Brian to dinner up there. Maybe he ought to. Actually, we'll allow him to take you to dinner if you're just around there twiddling your thumbs in between games. But we'll have to check that schedule out when that happens. How was it for you watching Etuan run around? I think was that your season opener, I believe? But early in the year, fun to do that, I'm sure.
Sure. We got to talk before the game, and it was fun to watch him play because he'd actually come down the court and sometimes give me a weird look on the bench. And it's just one of those things where it's like, man, it's so weird playing against him. Obviously we did it in high school, and that was, I guess, only one time, but it was almost like when he'd score, I wanted to clap, but it's like I can't. It was a weird thing, but it was also cool to be on an NBA court with him at the same time.
There's another good question from somebody. Outside of buying a brand new Mercedes-Benz, what was the one gift that you treated yourself to when you made the team?
I haven't treated myself to anything yet. Not really.
You certainly sent something to your mom.
What's that?
You certainly sent something to your mom, I hope.
I'm waiting for her to come up for Christmas.
All right, there you go.
To do that. But no, I had a few suits made before I made the team, so I guess that could count. Just because I felt like I should at least try to look presentable. But yeah, I haven't really bought a whole lot. So in terms of paycheck, I think our first one comes today, so that'd be kind of cool. But I haven't really splurged yet.
Yeah.
Rob, it's kind of hard to tell from our questions here what are actual questions and what are just your friends trolling us. But are two of your goals this season to be a full-time starter and also be on SportsCenter's top 10 dunks?
Oh, man, that probably is one of my friends. Well, obviously, you want to try to break into the starting lineup. That's something that you always want to do. With our team this year, I'm not sure if that's realistic without injuries occurring because we have such a good starting five. So really, I think that for this season, that's something that I don't think I want to see. But in terms of the SportsCenter top 10, I don't anticipate myself having too many dunks. So the only way I would make that would be for myself to get dunked on. So I'm going to try to stay out of that. In fact, even last game, I got switched into Kyrie Irving, and I was on face guard him because I don't want any part of this crossover dribble that I know he's got. So it's one of those things that you try to stay off that.
Just to kind of follow up on that, though, what do you feel like your upside is in the league?
I think that I can be a very solid rotation guy, whether that means starting or not. But you make shots, you try to be in the right position at all the time. Defensively, you rebound, just do whatever it takes to help the team win. That's something I've been doing since I was in high school. That's not anything different. You look at my high school team. I played point guard at Purdue. I think that myself, Etuan, Jawan, and even Lewis, Chris, and Keaton all sacrificed for the betterment of the team. We wanted to win for each other, and we wanted to win for Purdue. And to do that, I think we all a little bit sacrificed maybe some personal successes that we could have had some other places. So that's nothing new. But really, just keep doing what I've been doing. That's pretty much the formula for success for me, I think.
You talked about not wanting to get dunked on, but have you had that sort of welcome to the NBA moment yet, whether it's been since the season started, whether it was in the preseason, whether it was in summer league or anything like that?
I really haven't yet. I kind of, like I said, welcome to the NBA moment. We were playing Dallas, and I got put in there because Derek Williams was having some back issues. Mm-hmm. And Dirk Nowitzki came across the lane. My man, I was guarding Jay Crowder. He said a cross screen for Dirk. And our coach had said, make Dirk feel you, check him when he comes across the lane. Well, I must have had like a major adrenaline buildup because I nailed him. Immediate foul. I've just checked one of the biggest stars in the NBA. Sean Marion came over to me and had some choice words. So I was like, kind of like, oh, oh God, like, like I shouldn't do that, but you know, you gotta do what the coaches tell you, and you know, I think they actually were more pleased with my following him, just to kind of, you know, let him know that we're always kind of around him. But that would probably be my most welcome to the NBA moment as of now.
Yeah, it's early. It's early. You still got a lot of time to get that. You know, you're still. I still get a kick because we always think you're still around because I look at those buses with you reclined with that. You're still here, front and center in West Lafayette, but.
Those things creep me out.
Yeah, they do kind of creep me out, but I know you well enough that we kind of come to terms with that. But you know, you look at you obviously may not watch a lot of college basketball, but you're still close to the Purdue basketball program, and this is a team that needs to elevate itself after a disappointing year, after the year after you left. Have you had a chance to at least weigh in on what you've seen so far and some of the personalities that go along with this year's Purdue men's basketball team?
Sure. And don't get me wrong, I'll watch every Purdue game.
Oh, yeah, I hear you.
That's not what I meant. It's just hard for me to watch some of their stuff. I'll watch them every night. You know, I think it was good. Myself, Keaton Lewis, and Jawan came back for a week and played with the team, and I think they're much improved. I think for sure we're a tournament team. I would be shocked if we didn't make the tournament. I think that those seniors that they added with Eric and Sterling definitely help. Then you see the freshmen have done great. I really think that we're going to have a good season. Obviously, last year was disappointing, but I think, you know, with Tyrone, Travis, those guys as seniors will do a good job and lead the team to the tournament.
Rob, just what's it been like the last couple of years, kind of being the underdog? And when I say the underdog, obviously you had to work your way into the NBA, you had to make the team, but also back when you were in college, you know, you had to work past an awful lot of stuff too, as I'm sure people are well aware.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's a role that I've kind of gotten used to. I think after my knee injuries, you know, obviously things didn't exactly look good for me to have an NBA career. I don't think there's too many guys that tear their ACL twice and are able to medically continue to play. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I know when I went out to New York to get my meniscus done, Dr. Alchek told me, he said, you know, your knee is a medical miracle. The way it looks, it really looks normal. So really, you know, I owe my career to him, and then also to the guys that rehabbed my knee, whether that's Jeff Stein, who's now at the White Sox, or Tim Grover, or whoever. But you know, that underdog role is something that I've kind of got used to, and it's, you know, hey, whatever works, right? So that's what I need to do to keep having success here, and that's fine.
So have you anybody ill tonight? You got I know that the lineup is going to be returned to normal for the Timberwolves, but you're still always ready, so to speak.
No doubt. And, you know, Kevin's back, but at the same time, you never know what's going to happen. Somebody could get hurt. Somebody could get in foul trouble. There's a million different things that could happen to you know, where your name is called, and these guys always say, you know, you're constantly being evaluated, whether that's how you act on the bench or how you act in the hotel or even how you play on the court. You know, it's like a big job interview for next year or a few years down the road.
All right. Well, we have taken our allotted 12 minutes with you. I mean, we appreciate, in all seriousness, we know you've got a game to play tonight and lots to think about before that happens, but we really do sincerely appreciate the opportunity. You can become a regular on this anytime you want. I know it's one of those things you can aspire to do in your life, but of all the things you've done. But no, Rob, thanks so much for your time. Best of luck to you. I think you already know this, but I think every Purdue fan watches your every move and gets more impressed by the day. So we wish you the best, not only in Denver, but on your travels, and we'll look forward to seeing you back in West Lafayette, though not on the bus, so to speak. We'll look forward to seeing you in person soon.
There you go. I appreciate you guys having me on.
All right, thanks so much, Rob.
All right.
We want to say, and we're running just a little bit late today, but we appreciate the extra time with Rob, and he is. I know we don't want to gush, but it does make, I think, for you and your relationship all these years, makes doing the job you do fun.
He's just a good dude.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just an absolute real person, you know, and you don't run into that as much anymore when guys reach that level of their professions like Rob has. Obviously, maybe in 10 years he's a completely different person if he's successful in the NBA, but I seriously doubt it.
Yeah, he certainly has a lot of those qualities. Purdue's been fortunate to have some others like that, but he is that. And I think he plays on November 25th in Indianapolis when the Pacers and Timberwolves will hook up. I don't know how many trips he makes to Indianapolis this year, but hopefully I have an opportunity to see him down there as well. All right, we want to thank Kim, and we want to thank Gordon and Brian, of course, and Calvin Williams for joining us today. And, of course, our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, when tomorrow's a big day. Stay at HDI tonight. Triple X on the hill but on the level as Purdue and West Lafayette tradition since 1929. Basham Rentals, certainly one of the great places to rent apartments for students. And of course, State Farm agent Trent Johnson at TrentIsMyAgent.com. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. We'll have a show next week, and we'll not have a show the week of Thanksgiving prior to the IU game. That's we'll all be out doing our Christmas shopping. I wish that was the case on Friday before the IU game. So we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks to all at WLFI. We'll look forward to having you and talking more Purdue sports next week on Gold and Black Live.